The last one, because you got the paper signed. Everybody?
Hello, visitors. Make us feel special.
Heck, they shut me off.
Hey, Chad, have you heard from Renee? Chad? Have you heard from Renee?
You think he could hear us in there? He can.
Have you heard from Renee?
I have not. I did include her on the latest email, and I did leave her a voicemail message today. A little late, so I understand. I would say she's excused.
Well, we'll start at 3, and you know,
Yep.
traffic this time of year, people always run a little late or early, depending on how you predict. I saw, but it was just down, not far. Okay. I'm going to call to order a meeting of the Marine Resources Task Force. All stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, we have just the one set of minutes to review, right? The rest have been reviewed? Or we have January and just January?
Just January. I believe everything else has been approved.
So did you do December and January? I think I was missing that meeting? No, that was a different, no, okay. Okay, so has everybody had a chance to review the January minutes? If you were here.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the January minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Public comment. Come on up to the microphone, the new fancy microphone. Now, I think that perhaps be turned around. Right, Chad?
Yeah, that's right. Chairman Beach. Oh, look at that. Man.
I want to feel useful.
Oh, there we
You're
go.
brand new. We've never seen this before. Please, for the record, state your name and let us know what's on your mind.
Hi, my name is Sue Morris, and I am here today representing owners along Bay Beach Lane, asking your help in seeking a variance to the existing Florida statute 327.46, which has changed the speed limit at the south end of the island to 25 miles per hour. We want to reinstate the prior local ordinance that stated the south end of Fort Myers Beach is a no-wake zone. It is our understanding the town of Fort Myers Beach Council must make this request to the state of Florida. We are concerned that the present signage creates a major public safety hazard and adverse coastal and environmental conditions. As you are aware, the intersection of the canal from Fishtail Marina with the main Back Bay channel is a very busy intersection, with the canal servicing the marina, the restaurant, and boat docks of several associations. We have boats entering and exiting the canal and boats simply speeding through the channel. With so many boats of varying sizes, speeds, and directions, it is an accident waiting to happen. Last Saturday, 13 high-performance boats literally sped through the channel. A pontoon boat got caught in their wave and nearly collided with the seawall. We were lucky no one was hurt this time. Because we realize that public safety is the only avenue under which we can approach the state, this is the basis of our request. We are, however, seriously concerned about the dolphin and manatee population in the area. We normally have numerous dolphin and manatee sightings daily. The dolphins are rarely seen these days. The manatees are mostly not present right now due to water temperature. but I guarantee you they were here until the cold spell in the beginning of January. I guess they didn't get the memo that they were in harm's way after November 15th. Ecologically concerned homeowners have personally paid Ocean Habitat to install 15 units under the fishing pier at the south end of the island. These units are designed to be placed under docks to filter water and encourage marine life. I wonder if it will be effective in the turbulent water. The mangroves are especially disturbed by the horrible wave action. The erosion in the mangrove area is quite obvious. They cannot serve their purpose with the constant waves pounding on their root system. There are laws to protect the trimming of the mangroves, but if the root system is disturbed, Mother Nature will trim them for us. We have over 550 signatures and still counting on a petition asking to restore this to a no-wake area. We are a large group of homeowners who are truly concerned with what is happening to our surroundings with this change in boat speed. And why? To save a boater 5 minutes of time in getting from A to B? Our safety, our wildlife, and ecological system deserve better. We appreciate any advice and help this committee can give us. Thank you.
Happened and why this is now an issue?
No, because I don't think it's come before us before.
There used to be a slower speed signs up in that area, and my understanding is that the county was contacted maybe about replacing a sign or something anyway. They came in and researched it, and their belief was that the signs were inaccurate that were there, and they changed the speed limit in the area. Now so it is a change, a big change in circumstances. This is not something that's been going on for years.
Let's speak a little louder. That they were, the distance was too large, they said, between the channel and the shore to be a wakeless zone?
Not an expert in this area.
Okay. Anybody else?
My name's Tim Horvitich. I'm also one of those concerned owners. I'm actually a boater in the area as well. And we have taken some measurements of the channel there. And obviously the channel has a very shallow side, which is which would be the north side of the channel. It's deeper on the south side. And so there are channel markers that basically split the channel in half. And between the docks and the channel markers, which mark the center, it's about 350 or 360 feet. So it's relatively small. I know that in the past, the distance from structures was 500 feet. So it's actually less than what those original distances were established as. So
That's a quick question. I usually don't do questions, but I'm kind of curious some of the things you said. So it's 300 to 360 feet between the dock and the channel markers, and those channel markers mark the landward side of the channel?
yeah, one side of the channel is Coon Key. The other side of the channel is Estero Island. And so the channel markers mark the safe passage. And that safe passage is the south side of the channel, or the side of the channel closest to Estero Island.
By Coon Key, it's shallow, and so those channel markers are marking off that.
That's correct.
So it's 300 to 360 feet onto the far side of the channel from Estero Island.
No, it's 360 feet from the docks on the south side to the channel marker. And then it's another, I think it's probably 200 feet, something like that, 200 feet to Coon Island.
The channel itself is on the Estero Island side of that, right?
The channel itself, which is navigable, is about 300.
Right. And essentially it goes from those markers right up to the docks.
Or seawall, yeah.
Yeah, or seawall in the case of some other areas.
I'm not sure if you're aware, there are markers on both sides of the channel. So by the way you phrased the question, I got the impression you thought they were only on one side, but there's red and green. So
There are no red.
there,
My understanding, there are no red, right? It's only green.
That's
as
right.
I can recall.
Usually there are, but I think through there, they
there are, okay.
just mark the sandbar. They figure that maybe people will notice that a seawall is not the place to take your boat. All right,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
thank you.
Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for your comment. Just as a matter of procedure, we'll talk about this down when we get into the probably agenda item of the manatees or during members' items and reports, since we're already talking about a very similar issue with the manatees. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, so we move on. Reusable bags. Last count, there
Can
were
we
three.
do sorry to interrupt, can we do a quick roll call just for record keeping?
Let's do a roll call. Everyone say your name, and I'm Bill Veach.
Steve Johnson?
Jennifer Rusk.
Greg Foster?
Mary Rose Spalletta.
Greg Holmes.
And let's take a quick just chance here for the new people to introduce yourself and to let us know why you're here.
Yeah, I'm Jennifer Rusk, and I was appointed and voted in last week, and I'm extremely excited. I've been a volunteer with Turtle Time Inc. and since 2015, and Crow on Sanibel since 2017. I enjoy working with my community, and I'm excited to be a part of this committee.
I purchased a house here 6 years ago, and I've lived full-time here for the last 4.5 years. I'm an avid boater. I go boating a couple times a week. In fact, I was out this morning. So the water is very important to me. I'm a captain and also a member of Captains for Clean Water.
Okay, a couple of points. One is we don't have a vice chair anymore. That's not on the agenda. We should probably I don't know where that goes procedurally, but I assume we do that.
Motion to add it and take a vote on that if you'd like.
Okay, so our beloved vice chair is gone, so we need a vice chair. Anybody is interested in the position?
I nominate Steve.
Second.
My move. Accept or not accept?
So,
If you're not interested, you can let us know.
Oh, no, I'd be happy to be the vice.
Okay, then we have
Lifetime vice.
we have a nomination for Steve Johnson. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Congratulations, Steve.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Seb, I think you probably need to move you over there sometime, but we'll do that next meeting.
Okay, good. Well, you just moved me here.
And also, we have now, he's not on the agenda, but we invited Ray, and he should be on the agenda to speak.
He's under the water quality option 6 discussion.
Okay, then with the agreement of the committee, I'd like to move that up when he comes back, and so he doesn't have to wait through all that stuff. But for now, let's go ahead and continue. Reusable bags. Steve, we had 3 spots open.
It's a quick update, still 3 available.
I have to admit that I didn't follow through. I tagged and was supposed to go back, and I didn't to Pinchers. So I'll put that on my to-do list for next week. We still have the 3?
And I have yet to go out also and push it, so.
Yeah, we gotta
3.
get
I think
this
we just
done.
need to make the final push.
I'm very good at pushing.
Okay,
So for the new members, I give them
a quick update.
You may have even seen them, because I think your wife had actually had some involved with it at church, but they're reusable bags, and that Murph is sponsoring to have, or we're not sponsoring, we're looking for sponsors to put their logos on it, and there's 16. To date, we have 13. So we need 3 more sponsors, and I can send you sort of the sheet that we use. It's a pledge sheet right now, so if they pledge to do it, we take their name. Once we get the 16th one done, we collect from everybody, print the bags. They get a distribution each for their sponsorship, and then Murph maintains a exactly the bag, yes, but on the, yes, instead of the town, since the town sponsored the first printing, these are where the sponsors will be. And the decision was made to leave the same plastic message on. Good, I love that.
And Steve, it's $690, correct, for a slot?
$695.
$695.
We may offer a discount. the $6.90, if anybody here today would like to sponsor.
One-time only deal.
That's right, $5 savings.
Okay, yeah, it'd be nice to push that over the finish line. Now, I did, I talked to, I might probably been before the last meeting, I talked to Publix, and they were interested, but you have to, I can't do anything. The town has to, someone from the town has to sign up as being a recipient. And did anything been happen with that, Chad?
So the direction I've gotten is while they're under a rezoning application, we'd rather hold off on asking them for money as a town.
Okay. Okay, so 3 more spots.
Okay.
All right, so with the committee's agreement, we'll move water quality up so we can hear from Ray.
Absolutely.
You have your own projector.
I do, but let me thank Amy.
She's in the booth.
She and Colton came by Monday just to make sure on a dry run, and they made sure that this was going to work. So I thank you for allowing me to maybe deviate from your normal place where you let people make presentations, but hopefully. Okay, very good. And I only have 4 slides here, and we'll take as long as you would like. I want to
Okay.
thank.
We might want to turn some lights down, because that's a speaker, it's not a screen.
Speakers on the
I
light.
want to thank
There we go.
Mary Rose for extending the invitation.
And thanks for showing your passcode.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Hopefully you memorize it. So I gave a presentation. It was the Oswego Bay Foundation, Mary Rose?
No, I think it was Matanzas Past
Matanzas,
Preserve.
that's right. And Mary Rose is kind enough to extend the invitation and suggested perhaps I might want to make a brief presentation to all of you with regards to what I believe is the ultimate solution for restoring our rivers and estuaries and getting beyond the just unfortunate lengthy discussions and diversions that are going on right now with regards to working effectively to abate the blue-green algae blooms and the harmful algae blooms of red tide. So I will just say this, that I can never know when I make a presentation. Those blue ribbons that you see through the EAA, which is the Everglades Agricultural Area, were constructed back in the 1940s by the South Central Flood Management District to help drain the Everglades. And then you've got the WCAs, which is the water conservation areas. The EAA is about 700,000 acres, 440,000 of those acres are sugarcane fields. You can see right off the bat why we're incurring the dramatic impacts to our coastal estuaries and why the Everglades is struggling, in fact, on life support because of lack of water, and why Florida Bay has been pretty much destroyed because it's hypersaline. And that's because the EAA severs that hydrological connection that once existed between the lake and the south end. Yeah, obviously, our government, state and federal, fell at the switch from the standpoint that back in the 1950s, 1960s, various sugarcane groups, particularly U.S. Florida Crystals, and the sugar companies started buying up a lot of that land. Apple and fields, and you can see right there that severing that hydrological. So, real quickly, what I wanted to at least let you folks know that it's unfortunate that our federal government and the talk that you hear about, the chatter, all focuses on what's called the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, SERP. But I'm here to tell you, and all you have to do is look at published meteorological data to understand that when SERP came about, it was thought that that would be the answer to restoring the Everglades. Unfortunately, like any business plan, you run a model to see if that plan will work, and in find out pretty much what the water budget is for the Lake Okeechobee watershed and how best to address storage and filtration of drainage. Unfortunately, 25 of those 30 years, 1960 to 1995, if you look at the meteorological data, was less than average rainfall. So we have a situation where we're going to possibly be spending $16 billion over the next 30 years with the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, and it's not going to address the excessive releases from Lake Okeechobee that's destroying the estuaries on the east and west coast. It's really astounding that we're still going full tilt to try to implement SERP when in fact it is not the answer. In fact, the Audubon of Florida a couple decades ago did all of us a favor by actually doing a water budget analysis of the Lake Okeechobee watershed. 0.7 million acre feet, and of course an acre foot is just water stacked 1 foot high over an acre. But there's 4.7 million acre feet of water that gets into, on an average year, that gets into Lake Okeechobee via rainfall or discharge or release from the Kissimmee River. Because the lake is so big, over 400 acres, it is 43,000 acres, excuse me. It is an area in which there's a tremendous amount of evaporation. In fact, of that 4.7 million acre feet of water that gets into the lake, 2.4 million acre feet evaporates. And so that leaves about 2.3 million acre feet. And if you take into account all the reservoirs that are to be built under SERP, under the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Program, C-43 is the one that's being constructed on our coast. C-44 was constructed on the east coast. You've got the Everglades Reservoir now, that's where they have already started to do groundwork preparation. If you combine all the reservoirs, once they're completed, they only will store up approximately 800,000 acre feet of water. And if you add the 500,000 acre feet of water that's used for agriculture, that gives you 1.3 million acre feet of water, the 500,000 plus the 800,000. So that still leaves a million acre feet of water that has to go somewhere. A million acre feet of water is 325 billion gallons of water. That has to go somewhere. And unfortunately, what the district and the Corps of Engineers have been doing is sending it to the east and west because they use the Caloosahatchee River on the west coast and the St. Lucie on the east coast as the relief valves. Many of you know that with lakes and reservoirs throughout the world, generally spillways are built. So that in order to maintain and protect the integrity of the dike or the dam, they're able to release water to alleviate the pressure on that structure. In our case, we don't have a spillway. We have, unfortunately, natural rivers. Although the St. Lucie was extended back in the 1920s, the Caloosahatchee to the coast back in the 1880s, because they both never connected to the coast, but they did since that time. Again, in the 20s with St. Lucie and 1880 with the Caloosahatchee River, where that water used to flow to the south. So we have a situation here now where, with no spillway, the Corps of Engineers safety always trumps everything, whether it's deterioration of water quality or any other issue. And so they have no choice but to use the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie as relief valves. And as you know, the Corps of Engineers is in the process of rebuilding and strengthening the Herbert Hoover Dike around the Lake Okeechobee. They have already finished some 22 miles of the work that cost them $750 million, and they realize it's really cost prohibitive. But nonetheless, they're still going forward with strengthening and improving some of the other portions of that dike on the southern end of the lake without taking into account the cost-benefit opportunity of actually building a spillway. Now, they will tell you that it's too costly, but I can say this, that back in 2010, when, if you remember, those of you who were living here, at the time, Governor Chris actually had worked out a deal with the sugar industry to buy the entire holdings of U.S. Sugar, 184,000 acres, their rail system, their refineries. And as it turned out, of course, it came at a time when Rick Scott was going to be running for governor. Chris went off to run for U.S. Senator. He lost. Ultimately, the amount of acreage was whittled down to 26,000 acres when it was finally acquired by the state. But Chris understood the importance of being able to restore that flowway to the south, and that's what he was trying to accomplish by buying up more sugar land to be able to allow for free flow of water from Lake Okeechobee down to the water conservation area of the Everglades and Florida Bay. Unfortunately, that plan fell through. But it's important to note that Chris actually had worked out a deal with U.S. Sugar at the time to purchase the land at $7,400 an acre. And even if you put an inflator there of $10,000 an acre, if you wish, for today, that's $500 million. You can think that's a lot of money, but as I said earlier, gosh, for $500 million to have been able to move forward, well, actually, it was $1.8 billion. I apologize, $1.8 billion to buy the entire U.S. Sugar holdings, but that included the 184,000 acres. As I said, they also had to buy the refinery and the railroad. But keep in mind that what the federal government is looking at doing is spending $16 billion of taxpayer money over the next 30 years and still not take care of the excessive discharge. So I think that's what may have got Mary Rose's attention with the discussion that actually we had, in which what we really need to do is restore to some semblance that historic flow that used to flow from Lake Okeechobee to the southern end of the ecosystem. So I would suggest that the Corps of Engineers to say that it was too cost prohibited to move forward with the spillway is really a false narrative, because it would have been cheaper to actually, we just need 50,000 acres more. And I'll show you in an area that is part of this Plan 6 question that really is the ideal solution. And that was where I came into where the 50,000 acres at times 50,000 acres, and if you do it $10,000 an acre, there's your $500 million. And I'll get into this as to where that 50,000 acres is located that needs to be acquired to be able to implement Plan 6. Plan 6 came from, by the way, the Corps of Engineers. In the early 1990s, they came up with a number of options to be able to restore the Everglades, and Plan 6 was one of those options which would help to restore that flowway from the lake to the southern end of the ecosystem. Unfortunately, when 1999 came along, just before the federal government adopted SERP and funded it, U.S. Sugar, their tentacles have far-reaching influence, and they ended up scuttling the Plan 6 option and instead proposed reservoirs. You probably have heard where they're proposing reservoirs around Lake Okeechobee, and that's most unfortunate because it takes water out of the watershed, which is desperately needed, particularly down in Everglades and Florida Bay. It also costs about $10 million per well, 300 wells, $3 billion. It's not the answer. And I got to tell you, if Adam Putnam had been elected governor, that's the direction that the district would have gone in. But at least at this point in time, there's a recognition that the deep injection wells are not the answer. We really need to work towards restoring that flow to the southern end of the ecosystem. And here's where I want to show you. That's the Plan 6. So unfortunately, while the Corps of Engineers came up with that proposal back in 1994, in 1999 it was eliminated because of the sugar industry's influence. But you can see there, if you can read it, where it says public lands, we have about 62,000 acres there under ownership. And then that large red arrow that comes right from the lake near South Bay that is in the direction towards the publicly owned lands, we need about 50,000 acres there. 20,000 acres from U.S. Sugar, 30,000 acres from Florida Crystals. So you can see there the Holy Lands. It would be the lands just above it, all the way up to the lake, and that does not encompass that's more than 50,000 acres. But by the way, that 50,000 acres, if you take that into perspective, as I said, there was about 700,000 acres of Everglades agricultural area. 440,000 of that is sugarcane fields. The 50,000 acres is 15% of the entire land inventory of the sugar industry, which I think is a small price to pay, where sugar can still have a bountiful harvest every year, still have very lucrative business, but at least it would give the public an opportunity to actually have land that's needed for the proper storage and treatment of water that can then be redirected to the south. What would be built?
Now, is
would
that
be-
15% just in the area below the lake here, or is it?
Yeah, no, so I'm talking about the 50,000 acres. By the way, can you read where it says Miami Canal and then North New River Canal as you're heading east? The very first blue ribbon there, you see, these again are those canals that were built back in the 1940s. Miami Canal's right there, North River, and you can see Bowles Canal right up on top there. The lake is just above that. You can see it, there's purple and then there's blue. So the 50,000 acres would be above the Bowles Canal. And that's where it could tie into the 62,000 acres of publicly owned land. Just as a point of reference, by the way, just above the Holy Lands is where the Everglades Agricultural Reservoir is being built. But here again, if you look at the numbers, and unfortunately, the public is not expected to get into the weeds, but that's kind of what you have to do, because when you look at C43, that's 170,000 acre feet of projected storage. That equates to 55 billion gallons of water. This Everglades reservoir that's to be built is going to have about enough storage for about 240,000 acre feet, which equates to about 65 billion gallons of water. So if you take that Everglades reservoir and the C43 reservoir, that's 120,000 acre feet of water. 120 billion gallons of water, excuse me, because you got the 170,000 acre feet plus the 240,000 acre feet, but again, the 170,000 acre feet on C43 equates to 55 billion gallons of water. The Everglades reservoir equates to 65 billion, so 65, 55, you get 120 billion gallons of water. Unfortunately, with the years we've been having with the heavy rainfall in the summertime and the wet season, we're getting in excess of 500 billion gallons of water that's being discharged from the lake to the west into our coastal estuaries. So again, if you get in the weeds and start looking at the numbers, that's wholly inadequate to properly store and treat the runoff from the lake down the Caloosahatchee. And as you know, there is no water quality component as yet that's even been on the drawing board for the C43 reservoir. So there's going to be water quality issues with the C43 reservoir. So again, it goes back to why we need to purchase more land, and that 50,000 acres coupled with the 62,000 acres that's already owned, will give us an over 100,000 acre footprint. And with that footprint, we can do kind of like a cascade of shallow water reservoirs and wetland marshes, so you can store and treat and direct that water south, so it can meet the thresholds that are set for instance, phosphorus at 10 parts per billion before water can get into the Everglades. So we're not suggesting with Plan 6 to redirect the problem to the south. We're actually talking about proper storage, filtration, and then allowing that water to flow south, which is needed by the Everglades and Florida Bay, and to abate the excessive pollutant releases that are coming west and east into our estuaries in South Florida. So to get more to the point, you all know about back in 2014, Amendment 1 was approved by the voters. I think it was like 85%. To provide funding to purchase environmentally sensitive land. It's about $1 billion a year now. It's a 20-year program. So there's money available if there's a political will to buy those 50,000 acres. Sugar is not interested for good reason. With the Farm Bill and their lucrative subsidies, why bother? They seem to own the political officials at all levels of government these days. But if you would at least perhaps make the suggestion to council, there's a lot that local governments can do if they get focused and galvanized that this really is the ideal approach to once and for all restore our rivers and our estuaries. You've been very patient with me. I'm happy to answer any questions if you'd like.
Ray, the acreage that's needed is really not for sale.
It's not for sale, but again, it can be condemned. We have eminent domain powers, but
The government would have to have the will to force Big Sugar to sell that land.
that is correct. Back in the day when Governor Christ approached them, of course, they were really reeling economically. And they felt at that point in time it was a good business decision to sell. Things got better economically, and they got different change in leadership and more supportive of the sugar industry by leadership. Rick Scott was pretty much a sugar guy. To be honest with you, and I'm not getting into politics, but
Yeah,
it
let's
was
not do that.
pretty evident through his demonstrated track record. But I say that because he led the charge to defeat when the state had the option to buy land,
Right.
to not even exercise the options.
Right.
At any rate, but yes, the 50,000 acres is what we would need to protect your waters out here.
I've got a couple of questions. Now, I understand the SERP program, and it's got like, what, a couple dozen, maybe 2-3 dozen different aspects to it, right? Between reservoirs, canals, and all that.
There's like 67 projects under SERP.
Yeah, okay. Now, the idea here, and I understand most reservoirs I've ever seen had a spillway.
Yeah.
They're rated for a 7 level, and they put a spillway. But, and I look at the differences here, and I understand this seems like an elegant solution. The one question I have, though, is that, one thing I noticed is that, okay, the way they're doing it now, it's all controlled.
Yeah.
They can pump water, they open valves, they do all that. So they can determine whatever level they want to be, which is good and bad, because it also means that political interference can have some say in where that water level is going to be.
And it does.
Like we saw the last couple of years. One of the reasons we had a good water year this year is because they lowered the level that they were
Yeah.
maintaining the lake at.
And I don't want to, but if I could just jump on that real quickly.
Okay?
And I apologize for the interruption. Right now, the Corps of Engineers, they had a really good colonel last year, Colonel Reynolds. She rotated out. They had back to a water supply versus water release. Colonel Reynolds understood just what you just said, that if you have a pulse release, the rainy season, you can avoid the big discharge with more toxic nutrients being released into our coastal estuaries. So that pulse release really helped to minimize the excessive releases later in the summer. We've just been getting blasted up until last summer. It was a better summer. Now the Corps is going back to reserving water in the lake for irrigation for the sugarcane industry because of their concern that if we get in any kind of drought conditions leading up to the wet rainy season or in the wet rainy season, they want to make sure they have enough water for irrigation. So the cities and the county, to be honest with you, they need to work with the counties on the East Coast that will understand that they need to get the Corps' attention to manage the lake again by having those pulse releases as opposed to building up the lake level solely for irrigation for sugar and then have those potential problems later in the summer.
It also seems like, and then you have we're now at the level will vary depending on, like I said, who's in command and what the political will is. But when they start determining where that level is going to be for the spillway, I mean, that sounds like it'd be a huge battle.
Well, I think if you can get the spillway built, that'd be an accomplishment. Then I think we can work out the level. But to be honest with you, we all know, from an engineering standpoint anyway, you know, at what water level is going to cause potential problems to compromising the integrity of the Herbert Hoover Dike. So they're going to want to keep it clearly below that. But the issue regarding the management of lake water level, I can tell you this, that the South Florida Water Management District manages the water in the entire Everglades agricultural area at 18 to 24 inches below ground, regardless of the seasonal fluctuations. So if we have a lot of rainwater, in fact, let me just show you. When we have a lot of rainwater, and this was done back in 2013, a photograph over a high altitude map here. You see where the lake is, right? And then you see the Everglades agricultural area here. We had monsoon rains. It was really a wet year in 2013. And look at why, because the district will manage those lands at 18 to 24 inches below ground all year round. So if you get a heavy wet rainy season like that, they are allowed to back pump right back into the lake with all their toxic brew of fertilizers, nitrogen, insecticides, pesticides, because they can't meet the 10 parts per billion threshold of releasing water in the Everglades. That was a federal consent decree back in the 1980s. There's no numeric nutrient standard level that they have to abide by when that water is back pumped into the lake. And that's all that water, toxic brew, comes down the rivers into our estuaries.
Now with the
And by the
capacity.
way, we pay for that. The
Oh,
public
yeah.
taxpayers pay for all
Pay
that
for the back
distribution,
pumping and
pumping of the
sugar.
water
Oh, yeah.
in the Everglades agricultural area.
I know that.
Now with the Plan 6 idea, now if there is a big season like that, and water starts coming over the spillway, is there enough capacity in that to ensure that this water, which even looking at it, you can tell that's not 10 parts per million.
No.
is enough filtering capacity so that that water won't overwhelm the system and send the polluted water into the Everglades?
You just asked the most important question, because the naysayers or the sugar industry will say, we don't have enough storage capacity to handle the volume of water you're going to release. Well, it's the chicken or egg. You got to buy the land to be able to have the storage capacity, and that's the 50,000 acres I was speaking of. If we had the 50,000 plus the 62,000, yeah, we would have enough storage capacity to store and filter, because it would be a dynamic system. We wouldn't just have to store. Absolutely, that's the idea, is that we would have the capacity once that spillway is built, otherwise it would fail. Yes, sir.
How big is the town? Could they use that as a waterway for diverting?
You don't want it, they do it anyway, but, I mean, to a certain extent, the problem with that is you're not filtering the water, and you're bypassing the water conservation area, the Everglades, Florida Bay, because right now, actually, they have the ability to, let's see if I can find this slide for you, where they can actually just route that water right out to the east coast. See those blue ribbons again? And you see it going right, extending right to the east coast? But that's just taking all that nutrient toxic brew and just dumping it in the Atlantic.
I mean, it would just direct it down into the WCA and then put your reservoirs down there and your systems for cleaning up the water before it goes further.
You don't have enough, the WCAs are, and that's a good question too, because here's another thing, the WCAs are publicly owned, right? But yet the public has to acquiesce to the sugar industry, so they're allowed to release and discharge their water from the Everglades agricultural area into the water conservation area, where that water is detained and filtered. So if you took water from the lake down the Miami Canal, like you said, and into the water conservation area, there'd be insufficient capacity, because it's already coming from the Everglades agriculture area. If we can stop that and force the sugarcane farmers to have to store and treat water on their own land like all developers have to do, then yeah, we could take water from the Miami Canal via the lake and then into the water conservation. Right now, there's no capacity during the time when it's needed. Good questions.
Last Memorial Day, the water was the clearest.
Make sure you're speaking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What happened Memorial Day or Memorial Weekend? The water clarity was like 15 feet out at New Pass.
Yeah, it's what's going on underneath the water, though. It does look like it's clear.
Well, it's
and
not
probably,
clear today. It's
well,
maybe a foot and a half.
Yeah, probably, and they may be discharging it. I mean, that's another thing is, we don't have the Gulf Shore current like on the East Coast, where a lot of those nutrients get washed offshore. Our nutrients just kind of sit and cook, and at times we get massive amount of algae blooms because the nutrients are doing their thing, because of the warm water, because of the sun, whatever. And in our situation, I think what you find is sometimes that water does seem really clear and clean, but it's either a minimal amount of discharge or the nutrients haven't done their thing yet, or quite frankly, it's so saline, because we're not getting enough fresh water right now. It's just, it's unconscionable that we're not getting the minimum flows that we need right now.
Also, Greg, I think that, there's other things, other problems with the Caloosahatchee watershed besides Lake O.
Oh, of course.
I mean, there's
Predominant amount of nutrients,
Yeah.
88 to 92% coming from the lake.
Yeah.
Even though I agree with the watershed and other agricultural uses along that watershed,
Yeah.
it's the lake.
And the way we put canals and ditches and things, we also rush the water into the lake instead of have it go slowly to the lake.
Except north with the Kissimmee River, which is working really well since they rerouted the, yeah.
So the other question is, sorry, you have some, Steve?
I just have one quick question. So maybe you can sharpen up my acumen here on lures. So the lures obviously is the
Lake Okeechobee regulations.
so that's the release schedule and the release regulations.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that's what was changed this past year to actually, I feel effectively control the release of water. But now they were having meetings to look at a new set of regulations, right? But not lures, but splores or.
Yeah, they have a different name, and I can't remember the exact name.
Right, but are they moving that way to actually, hopefully officially change it? And
Well,
is this
it
new?
needs to be changed, because I gotta tell you, what people need to understand is that sometimes we can have too much water, and sometimes we cannot have enough. We need some minimum flows.
Minimum 4,000, right?
And
Something like that,
typically,
CFS?
what happens with excuse me, and this doesn't cost us any more money, taxpayers' dollars. It's just a matter of, excuse me, the district, South Florida Water Management District and the Corps of Engineers regulating the water where there's an equitable level playing field so that at times of drought, don't just cut off environmental releases to the estuaries 100% in order to ensure you provide water for ag, for sugarcane. You need to implement some conservation measures for the sugarcane industry so that we get at least minimum releases to prevent this hypersaline conditions that we're experiencing. So you're right with regards to reworking and revisiting LORS and the new name they have it under. My concern is who's at the helm and determining how it's going to be revised.
Yeah, I mean, C-43 is supposed to help with, again, that's just,
No water quality component?
Right.
I don't see how they're going to meet the Water Quality Act.
well, I think they specified now to have a water quality. What it is, I'm not sure.
We talked
Correct?
about it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Hopefully that will be one bill at some point in time, but, yeah.
Well, you know, it seems like the SERP program has some momentum now. I mean, what's the political will of this? I mean, would this, trying to implement this, would this be a step back as far as that momentum?
The political will is, and the momentum is next to none because of who's at the helm locally, statewide, and federally. It doesn't mean that you just give up. You still try to at least bring it to officials. Looking at saving taxpayer money, if you're looking at the most effective approach to finally restore our estuaries and our rivers, and to restore and build and strengthen our economy and the health in our community, that Plan 6 is the most affordable way. So, you know, when you approach them, the best thing is, well, just do a cost-benefit analysis. I mean, that's the best way to, I think, approach this, is look at what you're doing now, what does it cost, what's the ultimate result at the end of the day, and look at potentially improving the flowway directly from the lake south.
Another kind of question, though, just kind of sanity check, because I look at the size of the water conservation areas and the size of the agricultural area, and you say they're pretty much at capacity filtering the water from the agricultural area.
Oh yeah, Everglades Agriculture heavily relies on the WCAs to store their polluted water.
So I'm kind of wondering how, with that relatively small strip, that you would manage to filter water from the entire watershed of of Lake Okeechobee.
The 50,000? No, the key is it's dynamic storage. We're not going to have it. You're going to have a 100,000 acre footprint, and it's got to be better than discharging all those nutrients to the west and to the east. Would I've liked the 184,000 acres that Charlie Crist wanted to obtain from U.S. Sugar? Absolutely. But I think the compromise is, let's try to get land that's contiguous with the existing publicly owned lands where we can do a system, leave it up to the engineers and biologists.
So are the wildlife, the water conservation areas, are those intended to hold water to restore the aquifers and things? Is that one of their intents?
Mainly, it's to treat and store the runoff from, well, the way it's being handled with the of water from the Everglades agriculture. Sugar has no storage or treatment on their own lands.
Yeah.
They're relying on publicly owned lands. But that's one of the problems is they use it all up. So they can't do what you had mentioned about rerouting it from the lake directly in the water conservation areas. Particularly during areas of, and to be honest with you, once they fill up the water conservation area, they then actually hit the time when the Corps of Engineers was discharging down the Caloosahatchee and the St. Lucie to prevent damage to the dike, the Herbert Hoover Dike. A few years ago, the sugar industry was still back pumping into the lake. That should have been stopped if there's an issue of concern for the integrity of the dike. They still allowed the back pumping from the sugarcane fields in the EAA into the lake while the Corps was rapidly trying to discharge water down to the east and west coast estuaries.
Now, I want to kind of circle back to something that Gregory here said. Now, okay, so you said the plan in this Plan 6 is to use a dynamic model that is more efficient, I assume, at filtering water than just putting it into natural lands and letting it sit.
Right.
Right? Is there something that you can be done with the water conservation areas to make those more efficient at filtering than what they are now?
Yeah, certainly harvesting. Harvesting the biomass, because I mean the wetlands work really well. The marshes really work well simulating nutrients, but even they get overtaxed. and you get just a tremendous amount of biomass because of the growth of the vegetation. So certainly going in there and manually harvesting, and I'm sure there's a way to be able to harvest that biomass and use it as feed for cattle or use it as pellets for fuel. I mean, there's got to be some innovative way of doing it, but clearly, yeah, you raise a good issue from the standpoint that because it's overgrown, it does need to be harvested, and once it is, it'd be more efficient.
So like in the wildlife, the water conservation, I shouldn't say wildlife, in the water conservation areas, are there like, do you get a lot of preponderance of things like cattails and the other
yeah.
nutrient-hungry
Yeah,
things?
big time.
And that's what you'd be looking at harvesting?
Grasses, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a biological benefit, because right now they're just letting it grow wild. It's taking over the sawgrass. Certainly harvesting it would make it much more conducive for taking up more nutrients.
And I assume too, as this goes on, that, you know, if you're doing this kind of naturally, that you get like a nutrient front, right? Because you need nutrients to support the cattails and whatnot, when the sawgrass is more comfortable in nutrient poor, or more competitive in a nutrient poor environment.
Correct.
So there's probably a line that ebbs and flows with what's going on with the water quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, there are ways to manage the WCAs more efficiently to do what you just talked about.
Yeah.
And that would complement the 50,000 acres I was talking about.
All right, anybody else have more questions for Ray?
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Ray.
I know the council listens to you, so you're making inroads.
Many thanks.
You're welcome.
I think it's be quick, so let's just, should we do the fertilizer ordinance update? That's like on second reading, or where are we at with that?
Yes, sir, second reading on the 18th.
On the 18th?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and it seems to have the will to go through. No crystal ball? Okay, well,
Were we supposed to get new copies of that, finalized copies of that ordinance? Do I have them? I have it somewhere?
you can go on to the agenda packets.
Okay.
I'm sure it'll be there.
Southwest Florida Conservancy comments were incorporated into the second reading, and it's going through staff right now.
Oh, okay, so, and that'll be, on the next Monday, it's gonna come up again, and those changes will be incorporated by the next council meeting, or you're? Oh, okay. And will you have that in your packet, or it's already beyond the week? Okay, and you haven't gotten your packet yet? No. Okay.
Very late, yeah. But at least we
All right.
have it there.
All right. Okay, well, let's, should we move the manatees up just in case these good people are waiting to
Sure.
talk about the boats and whatnot? Okay, so now, just to remind everybody, we were talking about about ways in which we can, and change some of the boating rules to protect manatees in certain areas. And, anybody have any?
Yep. I did a little research, pulled some stuff that we can give to Chad. You talk about signs, I took some pictures of that. From the Wildlife Commission, they're approved signs, so we don't even have to get an architecture. They're already approved, they could download the links on here and just go to our own printer and print and put signs, we're allowed to do it. But there's a lot of stuff here about the no wake and no minimal, which, you know, I don't know how we address that, but.
And I think they're right, there's a lot of informational signs that are not
Yeah.
necessarily speed limit signs, right?
Well, these all say no wake, they'll say minimal wake and so forth. Signs are already, you see, I printed out something to
Oh,
look
this is a
at.
good one. I like that one.
But you're not allowed to post those on,
These are all approved by the
Pilot
Wildlife
But you can't put
Commission,
them like in the area they're talking about where there's a speed limit. It's like
like
changing
on the
the,
channel.
Yeah.
You can't just
just
place one on a
put it- yeah, you
channel.
Put it on your
pole
docks
line.
and put it on your
Right.
type here.
Right,
Right.
canals.
We just have to make our own recommendation to our council that we would like to pursue whatever to get that back to a minimal wake at least. Or I don't know about a no wake, but at least a minimal wake. When I'm a boater, sailboat, I don't like any boats going fast past me, let alone them charting through channels. I just don't understand the 25 miles an hour when you're coming through the channel. I understand they like blasting through our point at Bowditch at 25, and I've complained about that. And then now they're coming underneath the bridge, and that turn two coming flying through there now, and then creating a lot of rough. But the manatees is one way to prevent that, you know, and they know there's manatees down there.
Who is it who changed those speed limits? Which level of government is it? It's
FWC.
it's just the FWC. I shouldn't say just, it is the FWC, okay.
And they're the ones who have the final say in that? Because, I mean, there are county ordinances that are on the signs, right?
I believe so. My knowledge.
That's the thing, there's so many overlapping jurisdictions. We're in the jurisdiction of the town and the county, and the FWC has some say. You know, if it's a federal, like I said, a federal path, they have some say.
I think one of the questions on this is it something we want to do is to reduce that? You said, Greg, you were a avid boater. I know that area extremely well. And I was so surprised when it first changed, because I had no notification, and I saw people buzzing through it the other way, and of course you're screaming at them, you know, no way, get down. And then one guy came by and kind of pointed, and I looked, and all the signs were gone. There's only a couple of no-wake signs against the seawall, and one right at the canal going to Fishtail.
And there's no markers saying, I mean, right now, there's no, because, you know, like on the beach, right, you have buoys out where it's wakeless, you know, landward of those buoys.
The swim buoys.
Yeah, swim buoys.
Right.
But you figure that anywhere, if there's a, you know, if the channel's too big, and you figured there would be markers somewhere saying, well, from here, it's too close, and you should be wakeless on the island side of you know, some marker, at a minimum.
Can we ask the town, sorry, still learning, to instruct the staff to apply for FWC for boating safety speed zone?
I think, well, let's talk about what our actual tools are, right? Because I think, I understand that we're in a consensus that we'd like to change.
Yeah,
this.
we need to do some,
Yeah.
we should do whatever we can.
And we'd also like to know the mechanism of how we go about getting this changed. We have to petition.
Recommend to, right.
And it obviously has to come through, you know, it'd be better to come through council. I think having a petition with hundreds of people signing it has a lot of power. And I think that having council address it. So, but the question is, if we want to ask council to do something, do they directly petition the FWC?
Question would be that before you ask council to do this, that you make sure that this is the only area you want to redress, because maybe there's other areas. So that if we're going to do this, we address all the areas that we're concerned about. I don't know for sure that there are, but I have a feeling that there
We
are
should
other
look at
areas.
where we're gonna put the new mooring field, which is gonna be way in the west, and that's coming out of Bowditch, and they're flying 25 miles an hour all the time through there.
So I think the committee probably needs to take a look at
That's the only way.
Holistic
island-wide
look, yeah.
before you go to council and ask them to do something, so that you have set areas where you're making the request for.
Are you aware if this has been done before?
I don't remember that it came through council, but I know that a group took it up before and did a lot of work and failed about 5 years ago. Not for this particular area, another area.
I've read like the Clam Pass down south, that they petitioned FWC to change for manatees, and they said they didn't have enough manatees.
My understanding is it's difficult to accomplish, but I don't want to discourage you from doing that. But I was just saying, if you're going to do it, make sure that you don't ask for one area now and then next year decide that you should have included more areas, for example.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but, you know, I also am a big fan of the saying, you know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Right.
So maybe while we're trying to figure out exactly what the mechanism is, we take the lowest hanging fruit, if you will, because this is you know, this position, this is a change. This is a sudden change.
It wasn't a change. My understanding is that the signs that were put up were wrong, and that's why they took them down. So it's not a change. Again, am I correct, Chad?
Yeah, that's my
Are you
understanding.
saying legislatively it was?
It was not a legislative change.
Never changed, the signs just one day
The-
showed up.
The sign, somebody put up the wrong signs is what it's been explained to me. Now, again, I don't know if any of this is factual or not. What I've been told is that the wrong signs were put up and that it's, so that legislatively was not changed. A long time.
Yeah, well, you know, it just kind of reminds me of if you're driving on a street and, you know, you get a ticket for going 35 in a 25 zone, they say, oh, no, those are the wrong signs, are they going to give you back your money for your ticket? So, you know, I think though, you know, and I agree that it sounds like it wasn't a change, but in the practical standpoint, it was. Because practically speaking, there was a limit because the sign said so when people behaved in a certain way.
There is a no wake sign as you enter from the north going south, big no wake, right? And then as you go through, you see a resume your speed. Once you get down to the south end, past that last pier, that's coming out into the channel, and then it's resume speed to 25 miles an hour.
I can tell
Maximum.
you from experience, it's actually a safety issue. Kayak in that area, sorry. I like to kayak in that area, and it feels like just recently the boats are going much faster. It's an issue for water structures, protecting the land, the wildlife. It's stressful to even be in that area anymore, and something needs to be done about it.
Can I just say, on the opposing side, is there any data that it's hurting the mangroves? Because there's 25-mile-an-hour zones elsewhere, south of Big Carlos Pass, right by, many different structures. It's 25, it's been there for,
Yeah, the intercoastal, you're saying the channel.
yeah, that's 25 there. It's 25 going through Naples in the intercoastal. There's many 25s where it doesn't seem to be causing the problems that we think this is. So is there any data to support that it's causing damage?
Well, where the highest manatee hits?
But not in that
The whole state
area.
of Florida.
I mean, when the change was made, the counts of manatee was before that. So we can't say that change for that small part of water killed manatees.
And I think though too, there's a really good point about a strategic thing from what Gregory was saying, is that, manatee, or the mangroves are very resilient. We know that. And they don't seem to limit speed because you're adjacent to mangroves, in a lot of other places. Manatees are a bit difficult because if a bunch of manatees are in, Buccaneer Bay or in the pass, they don't really know necessarily where they got hit. They just know that's where they see them, right? So there's really not a, and most, there are some people probably who are good, boating citizens, and they call when they hit a manatee. But I think that the property damage and personal safety are things that are a lot more concrete, because we know what wakes do to docks, and we know that there's people, I know there's kayaks there, but there's
Paddle boards.
yeah, there's lots of things, different places, but that is half the island lives in that part of the island.
Yeah,
It's a very congested area, both on, whether you're walking across a crosswalk on Lennell Street or whether you're kayaking across there. So I think that this is probably where you have the strongest case, is maybe don't, because, it's a lot of strategy. If you list 5 reasons why they should do something, and if someone doesn't want to do it, they'll take the weakest and attack that. So I don't know if we want to do a petition, if we should recommend you talk about the mangroves, but I think that it's worth mentioning manatees because the deaths we have, and we know a lot of manatees are in that area, and safety and
Boaters
yeah, and
Public
just
safety, yeah.
Public safety ought to be the trump
So
card.
it's a safety issue should be the big one for
Yeah,
both people
safety should be
and marine life. Yeah.
a slam dunk, because, even if it's, I don't know how long it's been saying this is a slow speed zone, but it seems like everything's grown up around that being a slow speed zone.
Oh, yeah.
The way people behave, the way they store their boats, the kind of docks people build, all that's built around a fact that is no longer a fact. You always may. You can just tap it, you don't have to hit the button, apparently.
Also, 25, I guess I have a question, or what I've noticed that 25 miles an hour for a smaller watercraft boat is going to be different than a larger one. So a larger boat is going to make more wake than a smaller one. So I guess that was.
Well, that's, that's why they say wakeless.
If a boat in the bow, a trawler won't put a wake at the same speed as a big V-bow. That'll swamp my boat right over.
Yeah, and pontoons don't tend to have as much of a wake.
But every boater who makes a wake is responsible for their wake and can be arrested for making a wake. If it capsizes a kayak, that boater's responsible for it. So there are laws to protect kayakers and all of that.
In the channel.
Everywhere. If you have a big wake and you cause
It's a
damage,
miserable mile, and you kick somebody into a piling.
you are responsible for your weight.
You have to get that boat's name as you pass by you 25 miles
you're
an
in a
hour.
kayak,
I've
I
tried
don't-
that. It's really hard to get people.
Yeah,
It's really hard to pin them
If you're in a
down.
kayak or a paddleboard, you can't catch a boat.
think-
Yeah, enforceability is a big thing with what you're
I
saying.
think the public safety is probably the strongest argument. Environmentally, there are a lot of, I've seen manatees down there, the eco tour boats are always down there, some of the dolphins favor that area. But what I see is the northbound channel traffic, right currently, even in a no-wake area, as they make a left technically, to turn into Fishtail Marina, or any of the, docks that way, then the southbound boats are always looking to say, okay, am I gonna, there's always a question of standoff boat and all that kind of stuff. So if you were to increase the speed up to 25 miles an hour through that way, which I think it is now, correct? Because that's,
Well,
it's
within
it's
the
channel.
winter months,
Right, the November 15th to
Yeah.
April 15th, or, yeah,
April 1st.
right, correct, April 1st.
That's in there.
I would say that would exasperate that issue, that these people would be coming off and actually coming off a plane while these other people are coming southbound through that area, or even vice versa, I suppose.
Has there been?
Yeah,
Since the change in the speed limit, has there been an incident?
I don't know.
I've heard that there has been incidents with people on a dock got hurt from a wake. And the incident that Sue told us about about a near miss with a pontoon boat. But, I think too, that the thing, if you make an argument about manatees, then they will, the counter argument will be, well, it's only during non-manatee season. So then you're left with kind of a, safety property damage argument. And I'm guessing too that I don't know if boating density really plays into it at all, because, that pass out there during season is like a washing machine.
Nothing compared to Naples.
Yeah.
The volume of boats in Naples going 25 mile an hour with multiple canals offshoot is, I would think, much less safe, and I don't know any data of actual incidents. If you want to use safety, you have to prove it's not safe by going to an area similar, and they're having incidents. If they're not having incidents, then you can't do the safety issue, and that's what the FWC is going to
If they're
do.
turning north, I don't know how they can go 25 knots. They're entering right into mooring fields and then within 100 feet of people's docks and houses, and you can't be going 25 miles that close. I don't know how they can even go north there at any speed. Yeah.
January is when I saw it.
25
So we
is as
haven't
they-
hit
As they go
full
through the
season
bridge, they can
yet.
keep going straight into Hurricane Hole. That's the only way I can see them going fast. They can't, and I don't know how I don't know about going south. There's no way they can be going north. You should be able to easily get a sign saying no wake zone. You're going through too tight of a dense population of houses in a mooring field. You can't
But
have,
you're talking about, I think you're talking about the
Yeah,
north
we're talking
end, we're talking about the
about
south
down-
end.
yeah, south
By
end.
San Carlos, that area by
Well-
Fishtail Marina,
Yeah.
between Coon Key. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. There's no mooring field there, though.
well, it comes up to one.
Well, not until the north end of the island.
Yeah, there are a lot of
Well,
wake
it
lists.
stops and it must make them slow down then.
It goes from 25 to slow right at Williams Road.
Where?
Williams, which is
Right,
3 blocks south of
Sterling
Publix.
or whatever, right, Mid-Island, right.
Yeah, that's where it goes down to.
That's
No,
where my
really
canal-
what
that's
it
my
is,
canal
between
is, yeah.
Publix and when they come through the bridge, they're going 25 knots there.
Right,
No
that's what
legal
you're-
25 in that area.
So at Williams, as William does
Not
the,
until you make the corner around Bowditch.
that's where the.
Yeah.
All right, we're fishtail.
And really, should we wait until something bad happens, Yeah,
kind of way to do things, wait until someone gets.
right.
The other thing is to compare, I'm also kind of curious about what the criteria is, because, to me, I'm gonna stuck on that idea, are they saying that, their criteria was the width of this area. But, it doesn't really matter what the width is if someone's coming close to you on that huge field.
Yeah,
The
The
width
Greg's
of
right, if you're on a paddleboard, they're supposed to be so many feet away from you. They're
Yeah,
uncertain, they
what
have
what I'm
to.
saying about, like, as far as it's close to the docks, and the input of that canal.
exactly.
That, if you're gonna say this is far enough away, then there should be some markers saying, okay, then if you're this close, then you should be going
They should be
wakeless.
putting channel
If it's
markers.
wide enough, it means it's further out from
There's
that.
still
They
some
should be
no
putting
wake
channel
Then they could
markers
go
like
fast.
150 feet from the docks, so they know they have to be this far out.
That's-
Nothing
that's
to
a-
tell them how close they can get, right? If I'm
Yeah,
hearing
that's
you
my
guys.
understanding. Because it
I mean,
wasn't
that would be
before and they didn't
a
have it.
So that's the
solution.
problem, they're not putting in the other channel markers, let them know you can't get this close to
They have to put
another,
the reds up,
Yep.
you're saying, yeah.
to
Yeah, that-
protect the
Because
density of
currently
the
it's
people.
as close to the dock.
And that's where the manatees be flowing through mostly anyway, so that would help too.
Yeah, again, I don't think the mandate needs to be an argument because this is a seasonal thing anyway. But I'm not really sure about whether that's enough. You know, it'd really narrow the traffic. And is there like a minimum?
Wouldn't you think there's precedent for something like this? I mean, it's probably fairly.
Maybe we should ask the person who approved installing new signs back in to come and explain the reason why they put the new signs in there with the update, and then have a discussion with them first
Yeah.
about, we'd like the old signs back.
And what would you suggest?
And what
for
would
us
be
to
our
do?
pathway, because we're getting a lot of complaints, and you're gonna get 500 of them pretty quick.
Well, me also, like, what's the difference between this position and the position north of Williams? I mean, is it narrower there? Or are the channel markers closer to the houses? I mean, why is one area being treated differently than another? And also, again, you know, not having any kind of just, you know, because, you know, and I don't know how much of a solution to this be for the people, but, you know, people were going fast, but they were confined to a smaller area away from the docks.
Correct.
It does a couple things for you. One is it does
150 feet.
keep the wakes, it gives them more chance for the wake to dissipate, although wakes go on for a really long time. Plus, if you're trying to cross, it makes a shorter crossing point where all the stuff is. So you're paddling across, it's a smaller channel to actually have to cross.
Does FWC respond to safety requests? Or are they,
There is a phone number. I can send that to you, after this meeting. I can give you the boating regulation as well as the statutes that regulate boating speeds.
theoretically, they do respond to questions about safety and promoting safety, theoretically? Yeah.
Concerns.
Mary Rose, you
Yes.
can, FWC, you can apply for FWC for boating, safety speed zone,
Apply, it says.
the town council.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, I think we should ask the council to consider this. I would like maybe a little more information about exactly what we're dealing with as far as the details of why they did it and how it varies along other parts of the island. I don't want to necessarily open up a can of worms, or they say, oh yeah, it's going to be now wakeless all the way in the back bay. You know, I mean, I don't want to arm them with something that'll, you know, cut us,
Right.
so to speak.
I don't think it will.
There's a lot of, you know, with the power of the people's petition, and with the, you know, safety and property damage, and I've heard talk about people who were getting hurt, or have witnessed things, but I think getting something from them would be very advantageous to getting this pushed through too.
Getting from FWC, you mean?
Talking to the council, because we really can't do it, but talking to the council and saying that we recommend that you petition the FWC to get this, the speed limit changed, or if that doesn't happen, to get it zoned off so that people can't go 25 miles an hour 5 feet from docks and people and whatnot. And I know what you're saying about, you're still liable, but, you know, enforceability is a big thing. That if you can write all kinds of laws, and if they're not enforceable, they're not going to be enforced.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we should at least ask for direction from council, if they want us to pursue it further, or if they feel at this point they can go ahead and request something from FWC.
Oh, was it they who did it, or was it the county who did it?
FWC,
Oh,
that's what we're told.
well, they said the county put the sign up. See?
Oh, it's
It was
the
county
county.
who did it. That's why I say we should get them here telling us why they did it.
It's a county ordinance on the sign.
See?
Oh, did you do that under direction of FWC? Okay, well, we apparently have some questions to
We
answer
do.
before we really,
Yeah.
It's my understanding that the FWC has purview over what signage is where. Postings regarding speeds, according to state statutes that dictate that, then they would have had to remove the signs. So maybe they were up there and statute changed and signage needed to follow and didn't in a timely manner, or they were put there in error in the first place. I'm not sure.
Okay, well, here's what I'd like to do. Anybody have any more comments before I try to tie this sucker up? Okay, I'll go in front of council and I'll say we recommend they petition the FWC, but I'll tell them we're still looking into the details of exactly what would happen and what potential options. So I'll give them kind of a bit of a warning. But maybe some multiple guys who are involved in boating could go through and do the research and find out who has this jurisdiction, who's the one to petition, exactly why did they change this one, what are the parameters, and if it is that it's a wide enough area, then why isn't there a limit to how close those people can go fast to the docks and the any other things? So we know more about exactly what we're going to ask them.
And even if it is legal, is there some way that just for safety's sake, we can ask them to modify it? Because even if they're within their rights, it would certainly seem like there's a problem, and with potential damage to humans.
Yeah. You know, there's got to be something to it, because I can't imagine that there's no regulation saying that you can go as fast as you want close to a floating dock. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I'd like to know why. If maybe they did kind of a halfway thing where they took the signs down but didn't delineate where that applied.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, let's pursue it.
Okay, yes, you boater guys, let us know next meeting. Okay, so let's go on to, we've been jumping around here a little bit. Let's do this street lighting. It's another kind of fairly hot topic. Now, I promised you guys that I was going to write something up for this meeting, but I've kind of found that it's a little fuzzier and I don't have as much information. Thank you all for coming in, by the way.
Thank you.
A lot of it is what's available and the pricing of some things. So like, for example, there's talk of these amber lights equivalents, and FP&L, who really seems to want a one-size-fits-all kind of solution for the street lighting, they're saying that we have to put 4 times as many lights up if we do amber and put all these poles, and it's going to be $15,000 a pole. Then we hear from somebody else, well, something like $1,000 a pole. And then I hear from somebody else that there are alternative lights that have the amber color, but are stronger and that don't need you don't need 4 times as many.
Higher wattage, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, higher wattage, higher lumens. And so maybe it's instead of 4, it's, twice as many, So there seems a lot of variables there, and I really don't have enough, I feel like, to go in front of council and say, here's our alternative. But I am absolutely sure that there is a better alternative out there, and I'm positively sure.
Did anyone check out Santa Claus? Lights, lighting?
I wonder if it's something about maybe the frequency range of your voice and the machine doesn't like you, or if that's adjustable somehow.
Or your monitor is blocking you.
Oh, that could be it.
Yeah. A while ago, I was doing a training for a long bike ride, and I would ride out in Sanibel before the sun came up. And Sanibel's different, but like I would go by these developments, and every light in the development, even though it was, hundreds of feet away from the ocean, had those amber LED lights on. I think their street lights were amberish, but probably more of the 2000 something, whatever they.
More yellow, high pressure, somewhere yellow.
Yeah. What's the temperature of high pressure soda?
I don't exactly, 2000, maybe
Yeah.
2000 Kelvin, something like that.
But they had those up, and it was nice and dark. I mean, it was very easy on the eyes. But then again, they're different than us. There are towns like us, and I've put the word out to some people we've talked to who are, the advocates for the turtles, and no one has come up to me with a really solid, equivalent town like ours that put up streetlights that were both safe for people in a dense situation and safe for turtles. But I know there's an answer out there, and I'd be surprised. And FB&L, they cover a lot of these communities, so they should know, they should have
They
alternatives.
don't, I think that you had mentioned it's one size fit all, it's because that's all they have, Bill. I think that's the issue at hand, is that if that was to be the source of our lighting solution provider, then that's why there's 500 poles, is because they have a low watt amber LED solution, so that's why. Lighting.
And so that's what's in their arsenal of products.
Their
that
APL,
they-
approved product list. Yep.
Right. But there are lots of other products out there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Perdido Key is one that has, in fact, installed amber lighting, as has on Treasure Island, there's a community in St. Pete Beach that has also, I think along Gulf Road, whatever their Estero Boulevard is, right there next to the beach, has also installed them. Now, the interesting thing is those were both Gulf Power providers, or that received power, I believe. Now, but they're just not, it's just surprising because there's so much coastal community here that they actually have not put the time in to come up with a solution.
Yeah, I know a lot of times my experience is the surviving entity that purchases another one sometimes doesn't take the good stuff from the one they purchased. They
Right.
keep it their corporate culture. They
Right.
don't,
Is there such a thing as a lighting expert who could do this research if the town were to hire them, or?
Of course. Actually, they've been offered that already, a free photometric lighting.
Free?
Free, yeah, from.
By?
This environmental lighting expert we met
Okay,
up in Destin, or where were we at?
Panama City Beach.
Yeah, Sesco, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we need, and we asked, that was what was asked for back in November when it first came up, is give us options. Let's figure out what that's gonna be, but not just a one element solution of a bright white light corridor, the full length of the island. It's just, there's not a fit for that, and I think council rejected that. And in the last meeting, it was, I think, very clear that staff needs to find a solution, which I think starts, consultant.
or, another way too to do it is you start talking to vendors, even though they're not on the approved list from FPL. Because, a lot, the lighting study they got before, I thought was just unsuitable. I mean, they had a lighting study without even really
Two
considering.
objectives, public safety and cost, that was all.
Yeah, they weren't talking about our particular environment at all. But the people you go to, and I one that I actually found on my own, but then someone on the island here had a dialogue with them, that I sent a message off to them too, saying, here's the situation, what's kind of available, so I can get the nuts and bolts. But, because it's their business. But they're probably not going to be willing to do too much work if they think that you've got to go through FP&L, and FP&L may not want to use them.
Well, I think the reason that this Sesco organization was willing to help the town in the photometric evaluation was because they'd like to become the solution provider for FPL. That's their
Right.
That's their in, and so that's
Because
why
they do a
they're
good
very-
job for us, then that
Exactly,
means
and
it can be a
FPL
lot
will
of
say,
business for them.
listen, we'll
FPL.
take your luminaires, right, and this solution and your technique, for lighting and your consultation and bring it in-house. Or, right now, I'm not sure how much business they do with FPL, but that would bring them in closer with them and create a stronger partnership, I think. And that's what their return is for the effort, so. But at this point, it was kind of rebuffed when it was offered, so.
From FP&L.
No, from the town. Yeah, so I don't know where that's, I think they're, I don't know
So-
where it's at.
Do you know who's working on that in town? Is this
Yeah, is
Chelsea?
that, does anybody know? Chad, do you have any idea if staff has decided to work with somebody, or they're going out and finding a consultant, or what the first steps are since the last M&P meeting?
I'm not sure where Chelsea's at. I believe I gave you all the email responses to your questions that she provided
Those are a
you.
little old, yeah. Those are aged, yeah, those were, I haven't asked her myself, but.
Yeah, because, you know, I mean, the other thing too, that, and also from an aesthetic standpoint, that if, you know, it's true that these amber lights don't throw the light as far, then to me, that means you also, if you have more of them, you have them in shorter poles. And shorter poles should be cheaper and, you know, a little more intimate. I think it
Should they be
provides a better
decorative?
look.
Should they be wireless, like up at Longboat Key, you know, they're putting in poles that have wireless on them for, I think also for
What are the wires
broadband
underground?
for Wi-Fi.
Solar power?
For Wi-Fi, I think, I don't know if they're gonna be solar,
Oh, they
no,
actually
they're
have a-
actually putting theirs underground, so that was part of their project. Brought that up, yeah, I looked it up afterwards, and it's pretty neat what they're doing there, but it's a little bit more advanced, but, you know, I think, I'd like to see Fort Myers Beach be a leader here. You know,
Yes.
why don't we lead and not follow, because we do have a unique community. This piece I put together for you guys to consider, maybe as a position paper, you know, there's other things. There's just not the imperiled species issue. There's sky glow, which I think is a huge issue. Using LEDs or different types of lights. There's the additional wildlife issues for migrating birds, insects. I mean, there's papers that you can read. Citizens' health. We have an MD on the advisory board now, but the AMA has a position on white street lighting.
I read it. They basically said 3,000K.
Okay,
One,
yep.
but they also said that some of the 4,000K have a lot of blue. It's the blue light that
The
they don't
blue
like.
rich white light, correct.
So they're advising to get rid of the blue.
Right.
And it, you know, some of their arguments were a little wacky.
Sure.
Circadian rhythm, well, that's your daylight, nighttime. And if you stay in a bright light or any light, your circadian rhythms are going to be off, period.
Right.
So, I mean, like, in all hospitals, we use all bright white lights. And it's all approved and everything. So some of it was a little goofy, I hate to say it.
Good. And,
Well, you know, and, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, when you're outside, you're in bright light. What is, I think sunlight's like 5,000 K or something? And then, and moonlight's like 4,000, so, you know, I mean, there's,
that's ambient. I mean, that's not even a
Yeah.
comparison. That's not a comparison whatsoever.
So am I to understand that the town council has approved new lighting?
No.
No? Okay.
I do, and I do like the idea. I mean, what I'd like to get is someone who, if we're gonna be a pioneer, that they'll help us with this, because, you know, it's okay for the town, for us to ask the, you know, the town to spend more money on lights, but, you know, $7-8 million experiment that all comes on our backs. You know, and plus people probably are not really eager to have a new construction project on Estera right now, I'm guessing.
Correct, but I think there's also the aspect of whether or not you want a corridor also. Part of the lighting best practices are to light what needs to be lit, basically.
Right.
And just recently we went down, and it's kind of funny because people are worried about public safety. You know, right now there's nobody's looking after whether the lights that we actually have are on. That's kind of an interesting thing to bring up, actually.
We did that in the public safety committee. One of our things was, a task was to have an.
Right, two
an
of
area
them,
you would
right,
look for.
by Santini, in front of Estero Bay Tennis. So I thought that was quite interesting, but does it make sense? I mean, actually, as I drove that night, I thought, look how nice it is out. It's kind of dark, I can see, but I almost feel like you don't even, okay, I'm not suggesting this, you don't need streetlights. What you need is lit crosswalks.
Right.
That's where the
where you gotta hit
problems are.
somebody.
Well, or anywhere where there's congestion.
So can you go with a combination where you actually have something that turns, you know, that's maybe a little brighter there at the crosswalk and you stay in an amber, you know, an amber environment?
Well, like with the consultant's report, they did mention there are two standards of lighting. And so I think the basic implication I got from that is like, the downtown area, the Santini Plaza area where there's a lot of congestion, you have a higher standard of lighting, of luminosity
Correct,
than
a
you do
4 to
in
1,
other
right,
places.
ratio is what they call that, yeah.
But you know, I personally, I would favor even looking into being a dark sky community. And then just think it would help with our branding, because you just have a black square and that would be our logo.
That's what I said in November. I said, this was, they would be unique, you know? You have an amber village in the evening. I mean, and there's no, also, it's important to bring out that using amber light is not a safety issue. That you're not sacrificing safety because you're not using a bright white light. I mean, just
Still sufficient to see quite well.
absolutely, yeah, it doesn't cast shadows.
And I did some research here about how your eyes react. And
You adjust.
not only, you know, when the lights are warmer, then your pupils constrict less and they recover faster, both.
That's correct.
And so, you know, I mean, especially if you have to turn lights on and off, then having white to nothing is like a worst case scenario. Although even with the amber lights, you know, your eyes are adjusted, you still have your lights on your car, but they're consistent. And then someone comes in the direction and it's, you know, that's a whole different ballgame.
It's disability glare, yep.
To me, it's like a no-brainer. I don't understand what the issue is. Why can't we just get the amber lighting that's acquired by law? We ask our tourism and we ask businesses and.
Well, we ask our
homeowners
residents to do it.
Residents, we need to lead by example and get it done.
I agree with you.
I think the
'cause
problem is we need to find a vendor at an affordable price.
Correct.
That's the problem.
We don't want to just do it. We want to do it same, you know, the same way, like, you know, that some people were just all over these white lights, so they're free, let's get them now. We don't want to just jump at anything. You know, we want to find the efficient, suitable thing that it's cost effective.
I think council has recognized that we're not in a rush to do this. We are not going to hurry.
Yeah.
That was my understanding from the meeting. Would you agree, Rexanne?
Sooner the better.
What about the
A
lighting?
slim majority.
Yes. But nevertheless,
Why?
we agree that we don't have to push it through right now. You can think about it. So,
Yeah, public safety is an issue.
I think
that's
so.
on people's minds.
Yeah. Well, they also get free light bulbs if they have a deadline on that, right?
yeah.
Don't you have a deadline on the free light bulbs?
But the problem is,
We have been told that they don't know what the deadline is.
Okay.
oh.
Oh, the tariff, you're saying? Oh,
If
yeah,
we
there's no,
accept
it's an ongoing DOE plan, or I should say, program.
I
It's
don't-
a DOE that subsidizes
Is it-
FPNL.
I thought it was just FBNL, that the fact that our lights are so less efficient that,
Follow the money. No, they are getting subsidized to attempt to lower their energy footprint. And the best, fastest way to do that is to install LED lighting in municipalities. And they're able to offer that at no cost because of the subsidies.
It's happening all over the country. If you Google streetlights, you can find dozens of cities that are struggling with these issues that don't even have turtles, that are struggling with the whole LED streetlight issue.
Yeah.
And one municipality put them all in and then had to spend $350,000 to take them back out.
because they violated some other
No,
rule?
the
or-
town-
Got
hates
so many
it.
citizen complaints about the lights.
It's a white glare. You don't drive down Gladiola sometime from Harlem Heights down to Winkler right there. And that's an open, wide open, broad area. And just look at the lights and what that corridor does.
But the point is that the federal government is encouraging all the utilities nationwide to do this.
Right. Right now, there's about 10% of the United States is converted to LEDs. As a matter of fact, this summer, I think you're aware that our side streets were upgraded or changed to white LEDs, 3,000 Kelvin. And one of those caused a turtle disorientation at the Sterling access. So they're not turtle friendly, and actually the FPL rep finally said they were not. Although previously, those were asked, will these be okay for turtle, I mean, I have your quote here, in fact, you want me to read the whole thing, but are these okay for turtle, for turtle lightings? Are they turtle friendly? Are they turtle safe? And the staff response was yes, of course. And that's without shielding. And since the M&P meeting, when the FPL sales guy was here, he said, no, they're not turtle friendly. So I think they're coming along the way, coming along and understanding what is and what isn't. But I think there's a learning aspect that actually, believe it or not, FPL is going through. But to Rexanne's point, again, that's why I keep saying this really, I mean, there's obviously the regulations that both the state and the federal government put on imperiled species, but it's way bigger than that. What it does to the community, it will change the face, I think it absolutely will change the face of this community. That if, let's say, and I don't think it's gonna happen, those 4,000 Ks would be installed, but it would just be a brightly white lit corridor straight down from down the island. I think people would hate it. You can see comparisons online. I mean, if you look at all, there's just tons and tons of including towns that have rejected these, and like Rexanne said, have replaced them. So, I mean, that's where I said, I suppose that that I think street lighting is extremely important to the community.
So what K lighting is turtle friendly?
Long wavelengths.
Well, it's about.
I mean, you got to deal with their 3,000, 2,000. You got to deal with their numbers to get talking the same place.
They're measured differently
Well, we
because
need
of
to
the
get
size.
measurements.
So I can give you an example. So long wave amber LED lighting is about 1,200 CCT or Kelvin, and then once you get to about 2,700, then it gets white. I mean, that's how they measure it. The softest white LED is 2,700 Kelvin.
And I've heard like 1,600.
So, I mean, why don't we just start with a number and then see what's available? If we just say amber, and then somebody says, well, I have an amber light, but it's really 3,000, and I have an amber light that is really 1,000, why don't we say a number so you can start looking at lights and get real data?
It's more sophisticated, much more sophisticated than that. I feel like I'm very knowledgeable now, and I just scratched the surface. There's distribution, the spectral distribution based on the roadway. There's a green book, which is the FDOT sort of laws and guidance of what they have to meet.
There's also like, there's some, not ambiguity, but some a lack of it's not really determinate to go both ways. So you can take like a wavelength and you can more or less convert it to a color temperature, but you can't take a color temperature and convert it to a wavelength, because a color temperature is actually a broad spectrum of lighting. So like when you say you have white with some blue, well, that's got some white and some blue. LEDs have a really pure wavelength, which is one of the reasons they say amber LEDs, because if you have an element in there that's burning and you have a filter around it, that kind of just narrows your wavelength or your band.
Mm-hmm.
But the LEDs themselves have a very pure wavelength. That's why the early LEDs really didn't look good, because they distort everything because they're very pure. They don't have much, it isn't like when you have a blue bottle that all this light hits it and the blue reflects off. If there's no blue hitting it, then you get a different look out of it. So it is a little different, but I've heard about 1,600. And I think, it isn't necessarily a linear relationship. It doesn't mean like you have half the light at 1,600 that you have at 3,000, or it throws half the distance or anything. I think I think you have a fairly steep drop off, but I haven't found any research to say that.
You mean for turtle sake?
Just they say that the warmer lights don't throw as far, so you need fewer of the white lights.
Short wavelengths go much further.
Yeah.
That's where you get the sky glow, the white.
Right.
It's much shorter, yeah.
And so I guess, you can say it's, the white lights are more unruly, but they tend to spread further. But what their relationship is, I haven't heard. Is there like a wavelength per distance at certain illumination formula? I haven't heard. There may be somewhere of it.
When you said putting lights over the crosswalks, what if we put a crosswalk light that only comes on when you hit the button? Teaching people to use the button.
At a crosswalk.
At a crosswalk.
Because, crossing the street not in a crosswalk, I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
that's.
Well, see, there are these little safety things we can do
fix stupid,
that I think are, like the ones that the lights that flash when you hit the button.
Those are bad for the drivers.
Well, I think they're good because they let people know that someone's actually there and they're actually going to cross. When I lived in Salt Lake City, they had flags, and they had little posts that you put the flag in, and when you wanted to cross, you held to the flag. And that did two things. It made you more visible, and it let people know that you were really serious about crossing. You weren't just lingering at the crosswalk,
Right.
that you wanted to cross. I've even tried to give that before I was on a committee, the Public Safety Committee here, and they weren't really very interested, we're a little different environment. I imagine, here that if you put a bunch of fluorescent flags out, they're probably gonna make part of a sandcastle, you know?
Or a nice beer or something.
Yeah, you never really know. But there are other ideas, and the idea of just, illuminating crosswalks, illuminating maybe more, because the thing, if you have to do solar power with batteries, solar power, solar panels, batteries, and lights have all come a long way in the last 10, 20 years. I mean, a long way. So now it's, even parking lots are illuminated with solar panels just because it's cheaper than using FPNL. It's practical to do that, although every post costs you more, and there's probably more maintenance because there's batteries and other things to do. But if you have a location, it should be part of the cost equation, If you say, okay, we can put this light down, FPNL is going to cost us $15,000 to put a pole in, or we can put a pole with a solar panel and a battery and a light, the whole 9 yards, have no electricity cost, and pay $18,000, then it's part of your equation when you're making a choice.
So they do all the channel markers.
Yeah.
It's not too late to do that. The road project is well underway. It's, we can revise and,
Well, if it is practical, do the solar panel option. Again, it comes down to the cost analysis. Then you also don't have to go and run wires to extra poles,
right.
which isn't that much of, well, it's an issue anywhere you go, really. If it's along the right of way under the existing power poles, you still got to go through and dig up people's yards and, that kind of stuff.
Right.
I think that, looking at safety with just lighting is probably a little incomplete. You need to look at the big picture. What other things can we add?
Portion.
Yeah.
Biggest aggravation is all the people walking, not through crosswalks. A little thing maybe to teach them to use a crosswalk, because they get a light at nighttime.
Correct.
Yeah, and the other thing is you put signs at the end of the beach access roads just saying, please use a crosswalk and have an arrow towards them. If there isn't one at that beach access.
Right, there's quite a few that don't have crosswalks.
Yeah.
On the beach access.
Especially where they're dense. Yeah.
Is the lighting concern of for drivers and pedestrians on the sidewalks, or both?
Sure, we want everyone to be
Restate
safe.
your question, in
No,
what way, I
I
suppose?
can't remember where I was, but I remember there.
One of the examples of like that, where
By Sarasota, they've embedded, Amber LEDs for about a 2-mile range, I think,
And
just for,
I just remember it being
Harold
pretty
Stacey's reason.
nice and.
Are there streetlights also? Or they replace the streetlights?
I don't know.
sorry.
But then maybe we could have the LED lights in the sidewalks and then the turtle lighting on a pole, but then again, we're now. Anyhow, I just thought of that, so I thought I'd bring it to the table.
Okay, well, any more kind of comments before we try to wrap a bow on this bad boy?
what would you consider a,
Well, I think it behooves us to let council know what we're thinking and how,
are you still gonna work
How we're
on
thinking.
are you still gonna work on a recommendation?
I would, but I'd like to have more information. And the other thing, and I was gonna do this, but I missed it, was to go to a public safety committee meeting, talk with them, because it's something they're involved with. And I can
Good
do
idea.
that, because I think there's a whole picture here. Instead of looking at just street lighting as a single element, let's look at all the things we can do to augment safety, including the simple solutions. And some of them, one problem we have is it's a county road, and there's some things they just won't let us do on their road.
Or what, but I think they're open to it.
Well, things like the bus shelters, bus shelters, we're
Oh.
gonna put in bus shelters, and they said, well,
Sure, that's a little different than
yeah.
this, I suppose, but sure.
either you pay us so much to put a bus shelter there, or you allow us to have advertising
Yeah,
on it.
I get it,
Yeah,
but lighting's a little different, I think.
yeah. Well, let's, I think I'll talk to council, and I think I know there's some consensus about what we're talking about the
do we need
lights.
to vote on that so
But I
we can
would,
let council know that we are, we feel strongly about this issue and would like to see,
Well, I agree. We don't really need to get into details, do we, Roxanne? Other than just suggest or give our concerns that we highly suggest that they, follow what this town or the city has been representing as having a turtle-friendly town, and we continue to push for them to seek that type of resolution and let you figure it out. Or do you want us to get into details?
No, if the council wants you to get into details, they'll instruct you to do that.
Okay.
But I think the council always welcomes if you have a consensus about something that we hear from you, and Bill does come and reports your consensus about things to us.
Our scope for the MRF is the broad objectives of the MRTF are to further the welfare of the citizens of the town by helping to promote a better, more healthful, safe, and attractive community environment, and to ensure that the unique and natural characteristics of our marine resources are preserved. I think this lighting study touches on all those.
Right.
And that's why, I'm
We should
suggesting,
strongly
yeah,
suggest
that
you
maybe
stick
it's
to
an
having
advisory board
turtle-friendly.
that we actually make a recommendation.
Okay, so there's a lot of information here.
Yeah,
but
so
what are you
consider what
specifically
was,
recommending?
what Chad's forward that or did, I guess, but you guys will be able to look at it. So, it's a working draft for you guys to look at.
Okay. So can I, as far as just kind of voicing what our consensus is, that we feel that the white LEDs are, our choices are artificially constrained by FP&L, that there are better options, there are more economic options, and we encourage the town to look beyond FP&L and the existing offerings for a lighting solution that is both legal, safe for wildlife, and safe for people.
I'd second that.
Broad strokes, that's.
Okay.
I like it.
Yeah, sure.
Now I gotta remember what I said.
Okay.
Okay.
Will you read it again, Bill?
Okay, I said this will look beyond FP&L's narrow offerings for a solution that is safe for people, endangered species, legal, and cost-effective. And I'll say enhanced by other safety measures.
Right, then you can think about crosswalks and such, too.
Okay. Anything more on street lighting?
Do we need to vote on that, Bill? No? Or it's your report?
Okay. I will make a motion that, that we all agree that the current consensus on the street lighting issue is that we encourage the council to look beyond FP&L's narrow offerings for a solution that is safe for people, endangered species, legal and cost-effective, and is enhanced by other safety measures.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right. Ready to move on? Do we shed enough light on that topic?
Oh.
I don't want to leave you in the dark.
Oh, Bill.
Okay. Okay, so the next thing with this really shuffled deck, the pollinating neighborhood. Now, I put that on and I'm ready to take that off. I'm just not sure about the implementation and I haven't.
And we have enough on our plate right now, Bill.
Yeah, and I just, I kind of hope that some things you're going to put the word out and people are going to get excited and then it doesn't happen and
Right.
then it becomes more of a chore.
We won't forget it, though.
Okay. So Chad, when it comes to set agenda, we'll take that one off. Okay, now the manatees we talked about with the speed. And I think that maybe we also agreed that we're going to focus on the speed thing first. And then look at the manatees once we get an understanding of how that works.
Yeah, we're going to use the safety issue.
Right.
Right.
That's our first bite of the elephant. Okay, next. Now, in case you new folks don't know, we have this thing in the paper where we give someone an award every month for someone who is seen demonstrating good environmental stewardship. That can be someone picking up garbage, filling in holes, wearing bright clothes and crossing in a crosswalk. Maybe it's not really environmental stewardship. So this is about the time we go and everyone tells us if they have anybody in mind, and we put that in the paper. So, does anybody have an example from the last month of someone who was
Yes.
seen?
Yeah, I forwarded something to Chad. Did you send it? The woman, what's her name? I saw someone last month, a visitor from Germany, I believe, and she, instead of collecting shells, was photographing them. Because she said when she goes home, people want to know what she's seen, and this way she doesn't have to carry them. So I sent Chad a photo of her, and she graciously sent me one of the photos that she had taken of the shells. And so I'm trying to find out what her name is now, but I do have a little quote from her that I thought would go along with it. And
Pass that around.
yeah, there are two photos, one of the woman and,
This?
yeah, that's the photo that she took. And then here's her, there's something else about,
I know, we want to see.
I'm looking to find,
I like the idea.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
You got bored. Okay. And does anybody else have anything? I know you're new, but this is kind of a challenge sometimes because it means you have to see somebody doing something, and then you also have to go up to them and talk to them.
You have to give their name and
I
approval
see
too,
people
so.
all
yeah,
the time.
may I read this? Her name is Andrea Ulig, and this is her quote. I'm originally from Hamburg and live now in the Black Forest, so I often miss the sea. That's why I enjoy the beach, the sea, the nature. Most of what I see and do, I'm happy to keep in my heart. But sometimes it's just nice to take some pictures back home to share them with my family and friends.
So
That's-
she doesn't live in a community?
No, she's a visitor from Germany.
What are the requirements for?
That is pretty much it, just to be seen
Somebody
doing
that's being
something.
environmental, it
We-
doesn't matter. We do a lot of beach pickup, you know,
Yeah,
people cleaning up the
yeah.
beach.
Yeah.
I
pickup,
was
something
awarded,
like that.
actually, Mr. Beach. You gave me the award years ago.
Oh, was this for the big,
Yeah.
Yeah,
garbage
okay.
that I'm constantly on the beach.
So that's my nominee.
then the only kind of restriction we have, we really haven't nominated any MRF members, active MRF members, or council people, or people who are kind of involved in it. We kind of like to be.
There's any more discussions?
We gave them one a couple years ago for the cleanup. Yeah, it's a good thing, but we gave them one and
We
took
got
their
one in the
picture.
bank still too, the mural in the bank.
Oh, we have the mural
Turtle
too.
murals,
Oh, I thought we used that.
turtle murals in the bank.
No, we used, well, Shannon came in and kind of,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
What
Well-
access is it at, one of the new houses?
It's down by Coconut,
Put a
is it?
turtle
yeah,
on their
yeah, yeah.
wall,
Oh,
have
yeah.
you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's,
Kinda
Okay.
Nicer than a wall,
yeah.
the plain wall. Quite often we bank them, we have a couple, and they're both good, and we have one,
Because sometimes we get
don't have
nothing.
any.
Yeah, somebody gets skunked. Okay, so then we'll actually have to have a vote. So we have two options for this month's Murphy. We have the German woman who likes keeping things in her heart. And we have the turtle painting on the coconut one. So all in favor of rewarding it to the German heart woman, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All in favor of the painting? Okay. You want the painting? Okay. Then it votes that we'll keep the painting in the,
They're both
in the
Mary
bank.
Rose- They're both Mary Roses. So she's a winner either way.
Yep,
Now, we're not keeping score, but if we were, no,
if we were. We'll save the turtle one.
we'll save the turtle, keep that in the bank.
That's right.
All right, and you'll forward that to me so I can put it in the next
Yes, sir.
story, okay. All right, member items and reports, and this is where you guys can talk about anything that's on your mind about, relative to the marine environment around the island. Anything you wish that maybe you think we should consider putting on the agenda or to pursue, or just want to talk about?
I wanted to follow up on the town's commitment to ensuring public access to the Back Bay by delineating the town's right-of-way.
So is that something about like the current evacuation of land, whatever, to
The
actually put?
public the
To
public
actually put
access
to put ropes and bollards.
between the property owners and the public access. I believe there was 7 streets that the town been instructed.
Yeah, it's public right of way.
Now, these are ones I thought like where the property lines and the seawalls didn't necessarily add up, but these didn't line up, and so they,
Stan knows this.
If I am understanding her correctly, we voted to do that.
Just following up on where we're at with that, with the town manager.
Well, we've asked the town manager to start doing that. That's a long process because we may apply for TDC funds for it or things like that, but we have committed to do so.
Welcome. To bring up the topic of the boardwalks down on the south end, should we get into that, or do you feel there's enough going on already?
you know,
Preserve.
Right,
I
I
think,
think we might take a stand on that.
okay.
What do you got? What's that?
I'd like to say that we're against it. We believe that the critical wildlife area is an important part of our island, and it needs to be preserved, that any encroachment on it, even if it isn't directly over the wildlife area, would be a detriment to not only the wildlife, but therefore the whole nature of Fort Myers Beach.
But we build lots of boardwalks over preserves,
Well,
and they've been very successful. We
I don't
have,
know.
I mean, they're parks, and I use them all the time to take pictures of birds and wildlife, and they're very successful, and I've never seen anyone.
this is a special area.
This is also, this is on private land?
Oh, this is private land. so
This is
what do we
private
ha-
land.
What do we have any say in it for then?
Well, here's the deal. Okay, now when the DEP has all these rules about how far you can build on the beach. Otherwise, you would have people putting piers, gazebos, cheeky huts, everything in there they can out in an area that'll wash away in a year.
Right.
This is the way. So when I built the deck in my yard, there's a 1978 coastal construction line,
CCL, yeah.
and that's where my deck stops. And there were 2 things. One is that, and I couldn't encroach any further out than my neighbors. It's the reason why that one house that was, the shells over there by the
two concrete
Junkanoo,
ones, yeah.
why they cut it off because they were too close. These people are wanting to do that, and if you've been down this part, you have to be kind of a beach walker to do it. There's already one pier out there that's been there for a long time, off the Caribbean Sands condo or something, and it's like just in sand. Maybe once upon a time there was a lagoon there, or maybe during a real high tide there is, but right now it's just like a fence that goes across and doesn't even open on both sides. And it's been there. This thing could risk being that again. Now, the town, these guys have been suing like crazy, and they've got the approval through the DEP. Well, they say they haven't been suing, but anyway, a lot of lawsuits. They're claiming this is the dune walkover, when it's a boardwalk over a lagoon that actually ends before the 4 dunes. Everything I read about what a dune walkover is this does not qualify by intent or by design. And I'm going to,
Sand and mangroves is what you call it.
the dune walkovers have a specific encouragement, because where areas of heavy traffic, which is using public right-of-ways, they can prevent a lot of erosion from happening. Now, if you're like, me, or some guy who has doesn't have a lot of things going on there, I don't personally see the benefit. But dune walkovers are specific. They go over the dune area. They're supposed to start within 10 feet of the dunes and then end after the dunes, and that's their intent. And this is not a dune walkover by what I see. And I'm going to say that I'll say that's my personal opinion. I'll say that on Monday as my personal opinion. But that's that's the one point I want to make. There'll be plenty of people saying they're warning about birds. We can talk about birds. We can talk about turtles if you want. If you want me to say something on behalf of Murph, I'm going to be there, and I'll be more than happy to do that. Tuesday, you remember that.
Were they allowed to do it?
They're in the process of trying to.
The DEP approved it.
Yeah.
That's been the problem.
Turned down by council, they asked for a rehearing, and they were granted a rehearing, and the rehearing is to occur on Tuesday.
All on their private land.
No, that's
No,
two.
that's,
See, I don't believe it's on private land, yeah. How far does your land go out?
Right.
Nobody answers
The
that.
structure that they are asking to build is about the length of a football field.
380 or
pictures.
390?
298.
298?
98,
That's what I've seen anyway.
So I can't believe it's all private land. At some point, it has to be.
A lot's been added from the sea,
Right.
right.
That's right. I mean, the Lee County tax records, you have to believe they have plats from,
Well, okay, here's the way it works.
and I know it's a dynamic beach,
Right,
of
it's a
course.
dynamic beach, and my understanding, and this is actually upheld by, I think, the Florida Supreme Court some time ago, that
Mm-hmm.
naturally accreted sand goes to the landward property owner, but there's all kinds of qualifications to that. So where you go when they've been raking, which is ironically a really productive bird nesting area, that's all naturally accreted, and this is only like gonna last 20 years. I mean, 20 years ago, they were looking at during an emergency renourishment because the water was right up against their seawalls.
Right.
And so that land is considered the landward property rights, property owners. These people, a lagoon has come in. So now the submerged lands, but the definition, it's fuzzy because it comes down to whether it's navigable or not. And some people say, well, you get a kayak in there, it's navigable. Other people say, well, I can't get my, 30-foot scooter in there, it's not navigable. So there's a lot of fuzzy things that they've worked on with this. They're also claiming because DEP approved it, it must be bird friendly. When the Audubon Society, whose primary reason to exist is to protect birds, is fighting it every step of the way.
Well, they're comparing it to an educational, to Corkscrew, I believe, sanctuary, and
right.
it just, I mean, it's not fully their own purpose. Private.
They've tried every angle, like they said it's a dune walkover, even though it isn't, so it gets favorable treatment. They've also said they're gonna let their neighbors go on it, to say for the public good, but it's only private property holders within a certain area.
You charge tickets? Well, it's not funny,
They
because,
could, yeah.
let me tell you.
I mean,
Yeah. And they,
They'd have to get a permit.
of course, but
So,
I guess 100-year study is required or something like that.
so what does Murph want to say? We can come up with a nice pithy
come
statement.
up with a statement?
there's also the precedent. That's what bothers me.
Yeah.
There's already people who are talking
There's
about it.
precedent, yeah, I mean, there's gonna be, that whole thing's gonna be nothing but,
If they do it, who else is gonna wanna do something? I want a boardwalk out to the water. I want a boardwalk. I wanna put a tiki bar at the end.
hardship, you know? For
Sell
convenience,
tickets.
not for hardship, right?
And really, I think since we are Murph, we should be talking about specific environmental issues. I mean, the idea that because it's 2 feet over from the critical wildlife area, that the birds are gonna fly, thousands and thousands of miles to get here and see that line and magically stay on the other side of it.
And they won't, because there's lots of boardwalks that show it.
Well, it's adjacent to an area where we had a green turtle nest for the first time in 35 years also. That's a consideration. And the idea that it would allow predators access to the bird's nest of endangered and threatened species, as well as the turtles. It's very negative as far as conservation of our resources.
And I understand they took the railings off, and does this mean there's no railings at all, that it's just
Yes.
ground level?
Right.
But the ironic part is, if it were truly a dune walkover,
Right.
then it would be more of an obstacle for turtle nests,
Obstacle.
because it'd be out on the dunes,
Yeah,
right?
but
And now
Gaspell
it's
has
pretty far back.
dozens of those boardwalks going out.
Well, it's going to allow predators access,
On
you know, as
on
it
the Gulf
is.
side or the Back Bay?
No, on the Gulf side. I've been on them many times. And they were brought right through the dunes, so you can get out, because you can't walk, there's so much brush, right? So you walk over these like 200 yards, some of them are 200, they're long, some of them. Then you get to the sandy beach and you can hang out.
You can walk 3 minutes and they directly to the water. And I'm concerned because these nests need to be protected from predators. We've never had a raccoon damage any nests on the beach, but this would make it very easy for raccoons feral cats. We know we have feral cats on the island. We have rats. All of those things would love to get into the bird's nests.
Right, and most important, it sets a precedent, right? This will be the
No,
first
they're
boardwalk
claiming
on
they
our
own the
island.
place for 5 or 6 years, I think.
This will be our first boardwalk on the island going out like that?
There's some they're installing now up on,
Those are with the Caribbean,
First of this size. There are small ones that were built many years ago. This is 3 or 4 times the size of anything currently.
And if you-
A lot of
Yes.
study.
and if you know, I don't know how much you've been on the beach, but there's like,
No, I'm, beach.
there's pilings
On
that
the
go out
beach.
near the Caper Beach, kind of by where, Sea Grape is. And I think that's from remnants from a pier that's from the 30s.
So I think our
Yeah.
recommendation should be, I like that whoever the Audubon side is looking into, our recommendations, we like whatever they recommend. Because obviously they're gonna look out for the best for the wildlife and the impact on it versus us redoing the whole thing over again. If they're already doing it, I don't know why we wouldn't be in favor of them.
Well, that's actually a great start. We can say that we support the Audubon Society's view on this and say the reason why is because their purpose is for the birds. They're not a political organization, they're not like a modern
Wildlife.
political organization. But they are for the birds and
Highly
we're for the birds
recognized.
and they're, yeah.
Yep.
They don't put the board on.
Not to
That
put it
they're-
up.
So they do
Not be
have a
allowed.
final, no boardwalk. Okay.
Yes.
Total, I think 2 boardwalks, isn't it? Right.
Bridge next. Heck, I was going to Lagoon, it's a bridge. Do they have a bridge application in?
It is a structure, you're right.
Yeah, okay.
we'll vote on it.
Well, I've got,
So what does it say, Bill?
we support the Audubon Society, ...
Sounds good.
I go, you'll fill in the blanks, right?
Yeah, I know. I know what to say after that, and we've talked about it. If you want me to, I can throw a few more words in there so we can have a vote on it.
I make a motion that we allow Bill to approach the council with a recommendation that starts with, we support Audubon Society, and allow him to complete the statement.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, but you do know that I have a very weird sense of humor
I just, as soon as it left my mouth, I thought, what am I doing?
and a propensity for sarcasm.
What am I doing?
So if they pass an ordinance, you have to start wearing your underwear in your head. It was all because it started out with Steve here.
So, just gotta be careful. We got him.
Okay. Anything, Greg, any member items and reports?
No, I'm good. I'll just keep following up on the manatee and signage.
Okay, and the boats, well, whatever happened down south, we need to really figure out what the deal was. Anything else, Mary Louise?
No, I think we've done a lot, but I will go to Pinchers before. Oh, I'm not going to be here for the next meeting. Please,
When is it?
excuse me.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Okay, Steve, anything? Vice Chair?
No, but just been doing some work on the lighting, and just want to also let the new members know that there's 2 other items that I think that are for the future. The South Bridge, that's expected to be updated here in the next few years. I'd like to, when that happens, is to see if we can't get some of the bridge material and use it for reefs. Somehow start, that's something that I think would be consideration, and also make sure that the new bridge also still has some type of a fishing platform for land-based fishermen, to keep the old Florida bridge fishing culture together. So, that's down the road, but
That's a good idea, though.
I like that.
2 good ideas.
Yep. Okay, anything else?
I will,
There.
yeah.
Or send it to Chad. Do I have to send the flyer to you? Yeah.
I can resend it for the new members.
Okay, yeah. Let me send you an updated one, because I have the X'd out. There's only 3 numbers that are still good, so we don't want to.
Yeah, and then the newer one
that
has your
right?
email address on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, how many are left on there? 3
There's
or?
3.
Okay.
There's 5, 9,
Actually, I might have
And
one.
does that have your email address on it? Steve,
Pardon me?
does that have Steve's email address?
1, 2,
Then
3.
later one.
Here's one. And here's one for Greg if he wants one.
Yeah, it'd be good to have a contact email, I think, on this.
And
You
hopefully,
should drop it
hopefully the
off at
St.
somebody's
Hopefully
place.
the St. Peter check doesn't go bad on me, right?
I'll check a pink shell again, I'm not getting those.
Yeah,
Any feedback?
I had the flu for probably 17 days. I mean, I had the worst flu in my life. Crushed a big portion of the time.
I'm having of course, they never happen at the right time, but I'm kind of suffering through it now, too. Anything, Gregory?
Is there a list of who the sponsors are, so you don't, like, ask this?
I can send that as
up
well.
there?
I do have a list right here, right now, but I can, would you want me to just share it with you right now? We have Margaritaville Resort, we have Sky's Restaurant, Bonnie Kai, Tri-Power Vacation Rentals, St. Peter Lutheran Church, FMB Chamber of Commerce, The Islander, Turtle Time Incorporated, and Good Time Charters. And some of those have multiple spots. So that's an excellent way to do it.
Decide
I'm
they
making
wanna
sure there's
be-
not two people together. Well, those are all taken, sold.
Oh,
So
I
you
see
can
that.
sell 5, 9, or 15. That's what's left, and here's their benefits here, and if we're interested, all they have to do is send an email, pledge support. That's
And
all
I-
very loose about it.
I've got some of the old bags still. Is everybody out of those bags, or just,
I
I
still
think I
have
have
maybe
2 or 3.
10 of them, maybe.
okay, because I got like 4 boxes.
You do,
Oh.
okay.
4 boxes.
Okay.
So,
We were hoarding them just in case we needed them.
well, I was ordering a couple, then I really didn't give out the other couple, so. Yeah, so I can either bring those the next meeting, or you have our email address, just reach out, and if you're
Oh,
driving
still in the
Mid-Island,
garage, like you said?
just same place and same garage.
Oh, I thought you were out. Oh.
Are they at your house?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well then, by all means,
I'll let you know
Yep.
when I'm coming
Yep.
back. Or-
Them to your residents,
get
those are the,
You didn't give
those
them
are
all
the
out at the
town.
market now?
I wanted to save some for when the seasonal people came in, and now it's time, they're here, so.
Well, yeah, because the council approached me, and I said, well, we're all out of bags, so I'll get back to you till we get the new bags.
And if someone wants hundreds of bags, like has happened, I tell them, well, we're really at the end of this thing.
What?
If someone wants like hundreds of bags, like what happened with someone who has like a rental, I tell them
They
that
represent like, what, 2,000 residents?
Yeah, we're not.
we're not, so, but especially with you guys new, it's good because you have a whole fresh set of people who could use them, so.
Does the town still have them?
I think they probably ran out a long time ago, because I used to drop them by every now and then.
Pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, okay.
How many's in the box?
Oh, I
48.
don't know, maybe 48, yeah.
Public comment? All right, so set agenda for next meeting, Chad, let's change the manatees to maybe boating speed zones and manatees.
Yeah, that's what I wrote, signage, voting, and
Yeah,
together.
and we'll get rid of the pollinator neighborhood. Now, I don't know, but you guys, think about this Plan 6, and maybe we'll talk about that next time. Let it sink a little bit. Okay, with that, I adjourn a meeting of the Marine Resources Task Force.
Second? Is that-
All in favor? Yeah, it was supposed to be a motion.
Aye.
That was supposed to be a motion? You record keeper out there? In the ether?
Once
Can I
again,
get a picture?
once again, a busy meeting.
Thanks for listening.
Such a good meeting. Lots to talk about.
We got
Are
a
we
picture.
posing?
Yep.
Picture.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're all guilty now. I can talk about it. It's slammed in the paper.
I know, I was kind of kicking myself. I didn't get a picture of us with
With Shannon.
Shannon before.
She's over here now, putting my
Right.
sunglasses on to
Right.
sharpen up the edges.
I can't believe she's gone.
Yeah.
I photographed them.
Sorry that happened. Maybe they'll hate to see.
Yeah, we'll get our walk there. It's my generic.
Try to go biking
What do you think,
by.
Gregory? You by Greg or Gregory?
All of it?
Greg.
Yeah.
I
But I
suppose
was
that
concerned
water,
that somebody
why
might
don't
drag
you
it
use the
back down
Miami
the beach,
Canal,
and
start
wash
building
down
all
the canal
the
again, or
purifiers and
tank
stuff and
them.
kick, sugar out of that area. It sounds like
And it was down there near the critical wildlife area.
Yeah, if you give me some sort of, yeah, give me the description.
power, you know, giving up their land is one thing, but saying you can't use public land as your sewer.
Exactly, see, that's the question. Well, I guess that's, if you're against them, you're against them.
Piles of time.
Thanks for joining.
Come back to them. Yeah, we're not gonna take your land, but you know what? You're gonna build your
Oh, that's why you're here. Thank you for coming.
Our land, let's use it for our water.
I left you what I
Oh, right.
in case somebody talks about signage.
Yeah, yeah, that's the typical stuff that you see at, actual,
Some of these are already Florida wildlife approved, so we don't even have to go to them.
right,
You're
but,
approved.
well, here's the thing though, like, it's even illegal for you to put this out on your dock. Like, it's,
Not according to read their wildlife, these are approved signage.
yeah,
Download, yeah, well, that's why I got it, yeah. Now, these aren't. Got some back ones that other people put up, but the ones that are approved by FWC.
Okay.
You can clarify with them, the numbers there, but why would they give it to you if we go download and
Yeah.
go put them up?
right,
So if we have a manatee issues, at least we could put signs telling them to slow down for manatees, even though they don't have to, right?
yeah.
That might be something worth just going out there if we can do that. Because you come through and all of a sudden you see these big manatee signs posting, just like they have off of, Fishtail. You go down, I guess, I always say west, everybody says
And you're
north.
saying in the canals you wanna post them, or along for the
Well,
channel?
I don't know where you guys want it. Somebody said you guys wanted to post signs and look at it, and I said, let's find the ones that are legal you can post without getting in trouble in case you do it, or the DEP gets involved.
Right.
These are approved by them. So we can do anything on your private docks. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard conflicting information,
No, the other marinas, they all have. Stuff like this. Sounds like no one really looks at them if we had a sign up there for 20 years that was wrong. That's kind of the other thing too, right? Interesting on that one. That's really gonna be funny how to chase.
yeah,
I'll
I'll
get time,
call,
I call you next week. Who do I chase down and call, or if you can, who in the county actually want to talk to them and find out? That'd be interesting, right? All you change your sign and had on for 20. We should have petitioned saying we've had this for 20 years to the FWC. It's been this way for 20 years. Keep it this way.
Right.
Nobody's complaining. I have a feeling some people found out. They made the blasting through that. See, I don't go in that end, so I don't see.
I will, I'm gonna,
Yeah, but I also know a lot of those channels are so wide, red markers are right at the docks. It doesn't matter, even if it says 25, you have to be like 100 feet from the dock. That's a no way. Swim buoys.
mhm.
All the way on the back. Channel should have no. I thought that was weird that they don't have clear channel marks red and green away from the houses. Like, you know, like even that big channel, they have it right on their dock. You can't go blasting through there.
Georgia,
Because on
Florida
the lakes
statutes.
have the same thing, they're all governed by the Coast Guard. Unless we put buoys out. We put buoys out and put no wake. You don't have to go ask anybody for food, because that.
Right.
Get it? Did it, they'd be pushing them into the mud bars.
Yeah.
There isn't a big space for, oh, there really isn't. That's why you see. There's gotta be a lot of space. No, because you can't get a dinghy through these things. You know, really narrow channels. I've tried to cut with my dinghy and running around. Anyway, yeah, see what you find out, and if you want me to do something, I'll help you.
Thank you.
As soon as I get my GoPro going, we'll go check out those oyster beds.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, me too.
See you.